The Last Starfighter, 1984. This film was known for its extensive use of computer graphics. What computer did they use to create the thrilling space battles? Was there ever a video game that was made based on this film? How did the screenwriter Jonathan R. Betuel come up with the idea for the screenplay for The Last Starfighter? These and more questions will be answered on
Back Look Cinema, the podcast.
As you know, eons ago, our ancestors created our great frontier, a barrier of energy encircling the peaceful systems of the universe and forever shutting out the scourge that plagues beyond. Fellow Rylands, because of a dark betrayal, our frontier will soon collapse. So we turn to you, starfighters and your navigators, whom of all the billions of creatures in the Star League, only you few were found to possess the, gift. You, and you alone, stand between us and the black terror of the Cold Dan. Victory or death? Hello, my name is Zoe. It's spelled Z-O or Z-O for those of you outside of the U.S. Welcome back, friends. This is the 223rd episode of Backlook Cinema, the podcast, where we take a look back at the movies of yesteryear, especially the movies of the latter half of the last millennium. If you like what you're about to hear, then please tell your family, tell your friends, and tell that champion Starfighter video game record breaker in your trailer park about Backlook Cinema. Last episode, I talked about The Secret of Nim, a movie that I had a lot of nostalgia for, but had never actually seen. In this episode, we will explore a movie that I think that we all have a lot of nostalgia for, that I've seen multiple times on cable TV, but one that I hadn't seen in a very long time. This movie represents the ultimate fantasy for me because it asks the question, what if you were the best at doing something that was otherwise totally useless? Like being the best kickball player in your elementary school. You ain't going nowhere with those skills. Back in the 80s, playing video games was one of those things. You could be the absolute best at Pac-Man, Galaga, or Donkey Kong. But in the real world, these skills were useless. Sure, nowadays you get streamers and game tournaments and you could earn a decent living playing video games, but it was different back then. The Last Starfighter explores this fantasy that you could crush the high score in a video game and then use those skills to pilot an alien spaceship and save the galaxy. Suit up, Starfighter. The traitor Zur and the Kodan Armada are threatening the frontier, and even Earth is not safe. It's time to climb in the most advanced deep space superiority fighter ever devised, the Ryland Star League Gunstar. Highly maneuverable, armed with 5 high-powered laser turrets, 4 photon bolt launchers, a series of particle beam emitters, and, in one unique case, not available for all starfighters, the experimental Death Blossom platform. Theoretically, just one Gunstar could take out an entire Kodan Armada. We have 14. The enemy Armada doesn't stand a chance. Now that you know what we're up against, let's go to the opening credits. Opening credits, The Last Starfighter, 1984. Alex Rogan just recently graduated high school. He's highly prized in this community for his knacks for fixing things. But Alex doesn't picture himself staying in a trailer park that he grew up in. He has his eyes set for a grander life that includes going to a prestigious out-of-state college and taking his girlfriend, Maggie Gordon, with him. But the universe is indifferent to Alex's desires. Maggie doesn't really want to leave her home, and the bank loan that Alex was relying on to jumpstart his dreams had been denied. He plays his favorite video game to blow off steam, and this leads to a series of events that could ultimately fulfill his greatest desires, but not in the ways that he could have ever imagined. Released July 13th, 1984, by Lorimar Film Entertainment and Universal Pictures, it grossed over $28 million in the US and Canada on a reported budget of $15 million. And that is not great. If we adjust that for inflation, then had the movie been released today, it would have grossed $89 million and the budget would have been $48 million. And if you're doing the calculus in your head, you will see that the film didn't make its money back. At least it didn't make its money back from the production plus the marketing budget. You can't even really say that it broke even. And for me, this is a great surprise. I remember watching this on TV like over and over again. It's one of those movies that I didn't get to see in a theater. And I just thought that it was a hit movie. I had no idea that it basically flopped at the box office. And to me, it comes at a shock. Now, starring in this movie was Lance Guest as Alex Rogan and Beta Alex. You may have seen him in Night of the Wolf, Halloween 2, Just the Way You Are, or Jaws the Revenge. And he has, like many of the actors that are in this film, spent a lot of his time in television. He's done some movies. They've all done maybe a couple of movies, but most of these actors really thrive on television. Like Robert Preston, he plays Centauri, and you might have seen him in The Music Man, Victor Victoria, or S.O.B. Of all the actors in this cast, he seems to have had the most robust movie experience. I think he had done a lot of his movie acting earlier in his career, and then he sort of transitioned to television. Dan O'Herlihy played Grigg, and he also kind of had a cameo of Grigg's wife. And he has been in movies like The Old Man, Waterloo, and MacArthur. Catherine Mary Stewart played Maggie Gordon. And when I watched this film, I felt like I've seen her before. She felt so familiar. And then when I was looking at her credits, I saw that she was in Night of the Comet, and we covered that in episode 51. And that's why, because that's another movie that I had watched repeatedly. And she was the lead in that movie. And she was also in Weekend at Bernie's and The Elevator Game. K.E. Kutar played Ambassador Enduran, and you might have seen him in The Watermelon Man, A Time for Killing, and there was a movie production of Guys and Dolls, or a movie adaptation. Dan Mason played Lord Krill, and you might have seen him in Roommates or Incubus. Norman Snow played Zur, and he was in Manhunter from 1986 and The Europeans. And last on the list is Chris Hebert. He played Louis Rogan. Louis Rogan played the little brother of Alex Rogan. And Louis Rogan played the little brother of Alex Rogan. And you might probably, maybe you did, maybe you didn't, because these films feel obscure to me. But he was in a movie called Invaders from Mars and Mortuary Academy. This movie was directed by Nick Castle, and I am not familiar with that name. I feel like I don't know. For some reason, I thought that it was, when I was looking at this film, that it would be a director that I would know, but I don't know why I would think that. But anyways, I don't know this Nick Castle guy. But I do know maybe a couple of his films. He directed Major Payne. That I remember. I remember watching Major Payne, and that's a movie with Damon Wayne. And he's also directed Dennis the Menace. And when I looked at his filmography, he seems to be squarely in sort of like the family film or family friendly film genre, something that's good for all audiences. He's also directed a film called Tap, The Boy Who Could Fly, and what's even more interesting is a movie that he wrote that's not exactly family friendly. He wrote Escape from New York. This movie was written by Jonathan R. Betuel. And what's interesting about him is that he worked as a cab driver while he was working on the script. And he's also written scripts for Theodore Rex and a movie called My Science Project. But he hasn't really done a whole bunch of writing. He hasn't written a lot of movies. He hasn't written a lot of TV shows. It's not exactly a robust catalog of work. The music was composed by Greg Safan, or maybe it's Safin. And he's written A Nightmare on Elm Street 4, The Dream Master, Remo Williams, The Adventure Begins. We covered that movie also on episode 182. He also did the score for Major Payne, Good Guys Wear Black. And he also wrote the theme for Cheers, the TV show. You know, Everybody Knows Your Name. And we're always glad you came. And I just have a couple of announcements. I just wanted to read some comments that was left, some very nice comments that were left by at Mark Crespo -M2C on YouTube. There was a comment that he left for The Secret of Nim, and they wrote, "Awesome commentary. I love this classic movie. Popcorn emoji." And then for the bonus episode 36 that I called Mando, Grogu, and God, which is a review of The Mandalorian Grogu and God is, he wrote, "Thank you so much. Heart emoji." And you're welcome. I'm glad I could be of service. I'm glad that I could provide some insight on some of the movies I've seen and that it's able to help somebody. And if you want to write a comment, I really appreciate it. It really helps spread the word about the show. And I really hope that when people listen to the podcast that it is helpful. So you can leave a comment on YouTube, or you can write into the email, or you can try to reach me on the various social medias that I'm on, and then I will list those in the show notes, and I'll talk about those at the end of the show. So now that we have talked about, well, we have gone through the opening credits, let's talk about our favorite parts. So I'm thinking about what could possibly be listed as like the theme of this movie. It's kind of following that, what's it called? The hero's journey. And the hero's journey has a certain rhythm. And sometimes when people see the hero's journey type of story, they immediately think of Star Wars, or they might think that, the writer is kind of like ripping off, or they're aping, something that George Lucas has done. But it's really a formula. And this movie follows that formula. And it's enjoyable. It's a fine formula. I like seeing the hero's journey in whatever form that it comes in. But as such, it's kind of difficult to sometimes discern what the themes might be. And when you're looking at a film or a story that follows the format of a hero's journey, they all seem to kind of have the same themes. Like, you know, you possess a gift in you that allows you to accomplish amazing things, or you can accomplish more than you think, or something like you're more than your circumstances. And that third one, that might be closer to what this film is trying to convey. That because you have Alex, and Alex wants to break out of the small world that he is in. He wants to get out of his trailer park. He wants to go to the wider world, and he wants to experience different things. He wants to learn the things that he needs to learn to have an impact in the world. He wants to be greater than what he is, or greater than the circumstances that he finds himself in, or that he grew up into. A lot of his friends, they're just going to go to, if they go to a school, they're just going to go to either a community college or a state school after high school. He wants to do more than that. He wants to be better than that. And that's what he's striving for. And I think that ties into the theme. And it's like when he finds himself in a circumstance where he has a chance to be greater, he resists it. He resists doing certain things. Like he doesn't necessarily want to be a starfighter. He doesn't think that he has what it takes to be a starfighter. And it takes people around him to basically change his mind about it and basically expand what he thinks that he can do. I think what it is that even though he wants to escape from his small town, there are barriers that he imposed upon himself that he didn't know he had. But at the same time, he was sort of kidnapped and dragged into an interstellar war against his will. So that kind of messes things up. It kind of muddies the water when it comes to the path of Alex's life or the things that he's trying to accomplish. One of the things, a few things that I noticed, that he has a little brother named Lewis. Lewis is extremely bothersome. He's a bothersome little brother. I think that Lewis is somewhere like, he's probably 5 years younger than Alex, and just a nuisance little brother. And it's a very interesting character. Another thing I noticed is that, like, the centerpiece of the first act of this film is the Starfighter cabinet video game. And it's sitting outside the local convenience store. And when he's frustrated or he just wants to relax, he plays that game. And what I find interesting is the characterization of Alex as a video game player. He's not obsessing over it. It's just something that he does. It's a hobby. And it's not something that takes over his life. Like when life gets in the way, or like when he has a chance to hang out with his friends, he'll go do that. He's not going to, the video game doesn't take over his life. And I think I liked the characterization of a person who is good at a video game, but not necessarily obsessed with a video game, where he shuts everybody out of his life in order to play this game. It's just something that he does. It doesn't take over his life. And I think that happens later on, or that might happen with whenever they do a movie about a person playing a video game, they'll paint the person as somebody who's totally obsessed, or they're in the basement of their house and they don't come up for air. They don't come up for food or water. They just stay down there playing video games, surrounded by garbage. And I'm glad that Alex isn't portrayed that way. And in any case, 1984, you could have a home console, but this is when cabinets or cabinet video games gave you the best experience. And it's kind of hard to like be a hermit when you're playing a video game in public. Like, you go to a video game arcade, the video game arcade will eventually close, so you can't like stay there. You can't play a video game all night long. There are boundaries that are imposed that would prevent people from becoming the type of obsessive video game players that we have today sometimes. Another thing about Alex is that he's cursed with knowledge. Basically, he's the neighborhood handyman, and he knows how to like fix electricity and stuff like that around the neighborhood. And whenever there's a problem, they call on Alex to help out. And that can get in the way of his social life. Like, he wants to go and he wants to hang out with his friends. But his mother had promised the neighbor that he would go and fix their television set because the signal had gone out or something. And Alex apparently is the only person in the neighborhood who knows how to fix these things. And this situation kind of reminded me of Star Wars, because in Star Wars, you had Luke Skywalker and he wants to go to Tashi Station to get some power converters. I mean, he really wants to hang out with his friends, but he wants to go to Tashi Station to pick up power converters. And in this case, Alex wants to go to Silver Lake to hang out with his friends, his girlfriend and their shared group of friends. They're all in one of their friends' truck. They're ready to go down to Silver Lake and just hang out and have a good time. And Alex is ready to go with them, but then his mom comes and says, "Oh, I need you to go fix Mrs. So-and-so's electricity." And he's totally bummed out about it. It was like, and I just kept imagining Luke, but I want to go to Tachi Station to pick up some power converters. Alex is not exactly like that. He's very disappointed, but he understands that, you know, that's part of his responsibility is to be the handyman. So he goes and does the work that his mom asks him to do. He's not exactly whining about it, but he's definitely crestfallen about the whole thing. At the end of the day, he's playing the video game. His girlfriend comes back. Their friends come back from Silver Lake, and he's playing the game to blow off steam. And they're talking to have a conversation while Alex is playing the game. And then she notices that he's close to the high score, which is interesting, is because he's having a conversation and he's so relaxed about talking to her and playing this game that he doesn't even realize that he's close to breaking the gaming record. And everybody in the trailer park is excited. They're like spreading the word that he's about to break this record. He's about to break the high score. And when I looked at that, I was thinking that somebody watching it today, like somebody who didn't grow up back then, would probably look at it and think it's weird that everybody would get excited. Like older people would get excited about a kid breaking this video game store, but it's not exactly far-fetched. I remember there used to be news reports on kids who were breaking video game stores. Like if they found a kid that was really good at Pac-Man and could cause the game to turn over. These video games had limited memory and they also didn't end. So what would happen is that you would get to a certain score that the video game couldn't calculate, or the CPU in the game couldn't calculate. And then basically the game could crash. And that would kind of make the big news. So these were big deals when a person would reach a high score in the game, or they would crash the game, or they would break a record, that people will actually get excited about it. It's kind of strange to talk about it now, but it's not so far-fetched that the people in this trailer park would gather around him, because they like him anyway, because he fixes everything. And he's a well-mannered kid. So they gather around the video game cabinet where Alex is playing, and they cheer him on, and he breaks the record, and the game ends, and he's like the champion. And I was thinking, I remember the crowds around cabinets. Like if there was a kid and he was really good at Pac-Man or Donkey Kong, I remember crowds gathering around watching it. I remember some of the biggest crowds were around like the Street Fighter cabinets, and some of the people in the crowd were in line to play the game, but at the same time, there are people that are just impressed with the prowess of the video game players. Nowadays, they have I forgot what you call those videos, the play with me or watch me play videos, where you basically watch somebody playing a video game over the internet. And some of these people have like millions of followers and millions of views. But back in the day, you couldn't do that. You have to be up close and personal. You have to be there in the arcade or at the 7-Eleven or at the mall, wherever that cabinet was. And you had to be there to watch this great player play that video game. And this video game is called Starfighter. It seemed to have cutting edge graphics. I don't think that you could actually have video game graphics that look like that in 1985. I think that, like Star Fox was a Nintendo game. I think it was on Nintendo 64. It was like the closest thing to a game like Starfighter in this movie. But compared to the Starfighter video game, the Star Fox graphics were primitive. And even in the arcades, like I think there were a couple of video games that use as advanced as the graphics were, like this is of course 1985, as advanced, even some that would use 3D polygons, that it was still primitive compared to the game that was being played in this movie. It was like ahead of its time. So no wonder it was popular. But along with that game reminds me of the CGI in the movie. What they did was like it was mostly live action, but anytime they would go into space, it was all CGI. And in this movie, Alex gets picked up by this guy claiming to be the inventor of the video game that he just won. And the guy was like, well, you won this game and now we want to take you someplace special because we're going to give you this great prize for beating the score in the video game. And so Alex gets in the car and the guy won't tell Alex where they're going. And the guy says his name is Centauri. And Centauri is played by Robert Preston. And Robert Preston, I think he's like big into musical theater. The way he performs the role as though he was doing a musical. His mannerisms are like kind of exaggerated. I wouldn't say that he was overacting, but he was playing the role like he was in a play, and at the same time, like he was a comedian. It's kind of hard to, describe, but he was very animated in his actions, and there was a flow to the way he spoke that it was almost like poetry when he spoke. And there was a great fluidity there, and he was kind of coming off like a con artist or a flim flam man. And because Alex is young, it's like he's not picking up on that. So Alex agrees to get into the car, and he agrees to go where the man is taking him. And he doesn't realize until it's too late that the car is a spaceship, and they go into space, and the guy's taking them to another world. And when it's on the ground, it's a real physical car, but when they go into space, that's the first time you see the CGI that's extensively used in this film for the space scene. And what it reminds me of, because now it's kind of like charming. Like, you can tell immediately that you're looking at computer graphics. I think even back then you could see it, but it's charming in a way that something like the Harryhausen special effects were. Harryhausen, who did the special effects for like Clash of the Titans, well, I think he was more of a consultant there, but he also did like Jason and the Argonauts and these earlier films where they did a lot of stop motion. So what happened is that you could tell that it was like these were done with models and miniatures, but it's still charming. Some people prefer, even when you can take a computer program and smooth out the motion, people prefer looking at the choppy movement of the stop motion rather than the smoothed out version that's done with computers. So when people look at it, it fills them with a sense of nostalgia. And in this film, when you see it, the special effects, the CGI, it's not going to fool you. And so what happens is that it just fills you with charm. It's a charming thing that they did. Back then, it looked awesome. Like, you knew you was looking at computer graphics, but it was so advanced in our eyes that it looked awesome, and we just accepted it. But nowadays, it's just kind of charming. But they use that for all of their outer space scenes. There's just nothing like where a different movie studio, or a different production, they would have used models, and they would have used either green screen or blue screen. They would have used different types of cameras. It would have looked real, but the people who made this movie did a different approach. And I think later on, that's what Babylon 5 did. Babylon 5, while Star Trek was still using models for spaceships, Babylon 5 was using was completely into the CGI. Like, all of the space scenes were CGI. But by the time you get to Babylon 5, it looked incredible. Like, at least back then, I couldn't really tell the difference, but it just looked really good. In any case, what people don't actually talk about a lot about this film are the costumes and the creature effects. There are a lot of alienness in this movie, and the aliens look great. They look every bit as good as the aliens in Star Wars, and they had great costumes and gadgets and all of these things. They did a fantastic job with the makeup effect, and that doesn't get talked about a lot in this movie because people are kind of focused on the computer graphics that are used for the space scenes. And the musical score is also great. I just named 3 of my favorite things about this movie. The musical score is like that classic adventure / military march theme. It fits this film perfectly. So all of these elements come together. It just made for a great experience. And then the other thing I noticed is that one of the aliens looks a lot like Zoidberg from Futurama. So what do you call Zoidberg? He's kind of like an octopus, or he has octopus features. So he's anthropomorphic, but his mouth, instead of a regular mouth, he has like tentacles where his mouth is, and then his limbs have like features of tentacles. I think he has claws at the end of his arms. And so there's an alien in The Last Starfighter, and he has tentacles where his mouth should be, just like Zoidberg, and he's kind of pinkish like Zoidberg is. I'm thinking, is this alien the inspiration for Zoidberg? I think he is, because he looks so much like Zoidberg. So I'm going to say they had a couple of Zoidberg aliens in this movie. But like I said, all of the aliens look pretty good. It was very impressive. And like I said, not enough people talk about that when they talk about this movie. So in this movie what I really liked about some of the different story elements. So you had the reluctant hero, and that's Alex, because Alex does not want to go to space, right? When he got into the car with Centauri, he thought that he was going to go to someplace on Earth, and Centauri then taking him to a whole nother solar system. And then when he gets there, they're planning to do an assault to defend their neighborhood. They're defending their solar system against this armada that they know that's coming for them. And the thing about it is that everybody that's there wants to be there. Like they're one, and then when they meet Alex, and Alex is saying that he didn't want to be there, they're confused. Why don't you want to be here? It's like this. Everybody else wants to be here. Everybody else wants to defend their home, so they came here so they can defend their home worlds. And Alex is the only person that's like, he wants to go back home. He wants to go back to Earth. So I really like that reluctant hero angle. He like beggars off a lot. There, a bunch of times in the film, they do take him back to Earth, but then circumstances are as such that he ends up coming back to the other solar system so he could fight these alien trespassers that are supposed to be coming. The other element that I kind of liked is that since they knew that they were going to be taking Alex away for quite some time, they left a copy of him on Earth. There was some kind of android doppelganger for Alex. It's supposed to act like Alex in his place. They called him a beta, or Beta Alex. And the funny thing about Beta Alex is that he barely knows how to be human. And like his girlfriend, or Alex's girlfriend, is trying to like hang out with Alex. She thinks this Alex is really an android. She's trying to hang out with this thing, and the android is just acting weird, right? And it's like she's sexually frustrated because she can't figure out why Alex is acting so weird. And it's like she comes close to breaking up with him, but then they get back together, and then she comes close to breaking up with him again because she doesn't realize that it's a robot. It's a lot of fun scenes there. There's a scene where Lewis sees both of the Alex, because there's a time when Alex comes home and he runs into the robot doppelganger, and Lewis and Alex shares a bedroom. So Lewis wakes up, he sees two Alexes there, and they're both yelling at him to go to sleep because he's dreaming. You're dreaming, Lewis, go to sleep. So that's funny. They had a lot of interesting scenes there. Those were some. I liked that because it kind of added a different dynamic to these types of movies. The Beta Alex that's on Earth, it's supposed to be like a decoy. And the Emperor, the bad guys, the what are they called again? The Kodan. The Kodan are the aliens that are trying to invade the peaceful Federation of Planets. So the Kodan is searching out all the starfighters and trying to kill all the starfighters. Like the first time that Alex goes home, the Kodan launches a surprise attack and destroys the Ryland base. So the Rylands are the peaceful empire, and the Kodan are, like I said, they're the enemy. And what they do is they launch a long range weapon at the headquarters, and they got a traitor among them. So there's a person named Zur, and Zur is a member of the people that the Kodan want to take over. Zur is a traitor. He's with the Kodan now, and because he's highly prized, the Kodan government made him in charge of the mission, but he's kind of like insufferable. Like the Kodan commanders, they hate working with this dude because, for one thing, he's the enemy. He's a traitor to his people, but they got to listen to him because it's what their government wants. And he's making bad, he's kind of selfish and self-centered. And he's making a lot of bad tactical decisions. So at any rate, the Kodan, they fire this long range weapon. They destroy the Ryland base. The Rylands are the ones with the starfighters, and apparently kill all of the, all or most of the starfighters, and at the same time destroy the battleships or the gunships that they were supposed to be using to defend themselves. So now, with all of these defenses down, now that they don't have to face any real resistance, they're going to march into Ryland space and kind of just take over the star systems of that area. And their armada consists of like one huge battleship and a whole bunch of fighter ships. And they're coming. And when Alex gets back to the base and like everything is destroyed except for a few people are still alive. One person is still alive is the navigator that was supposed to be Alex's partner when he decided to stay. And there's one Gunstar that's still left. Well, actually, I'm not sure how many Gunstars are left. But there's at least one. All the other starfighters are dead, except for Alex. So Alex and the navigator, the navigator is Grig, and Grig that's that's the one that had where he played his own wife. The actor played Grig and Grig's wife. Anyways, they get into the last Gunstar. And they blast off. They're going to the frontier to face off with the enemy. But even though Alex is in a spaceship, he's still having doubts. He still doesn't really want to do this, right? He doesn't have the confidence. It's like he doesn't believe that playing a video game is the same as operating an actual spaceship. But what had happened was that the video game was the test. The video game was sent there to look for a person who could beat the game, and then that person would be qualified to fly the spaceship. The video game was the test. And on Earth it was disguised as a video game, but on the other worlds, it was obvious that it was it was more like an exam. It was like an entry exam. And the other worlds, they already knew what's up. They knew that they were taking this entry exam to fly the spaceship. Alex didn't know because Centauri, I keep forgetting how to pronounce that word. Anyway, Centauri had invented or had reworked the test into a game because he wanted to find out if, I guess, he was thinking outside the box to get an Earthling to be one of the starfighters. The problem is that Earth is not, like, they're not supposed to be recruiting from Earth. The people of Earth are unaware of the wider universe. They don't know what's going on. But Centauri decides that he's going to find a starfighter on Earth anyway. And that's how he found Alex. And that's why Alex is so resistant, because he was just playing a video game. He wasn't trying to be the savior of the universe. In any case, that's the situation where he finds himself in. And Greg is constantly trying to encourage Alex to participate in this war. Alex doesn't want to, especially since they are the very last Starfighter. Like, that's the name of the movie. Well, Alex is the last Starfighter, and they're in the last gunship. And that makes Greg the last navigator. Like, they're alone, and they have to, I'm not exactly sure how many ships are in this armada, but dozens of ships. They're alone. They have to fight dozens of ships. And these aren't good odds. But Greg he's a great character because he's optimistic. He is excited about going into this war because he's excited about defending his world against these intruders. The planets that are in this group of, I don't know what you call it. I keep thinking about a federation. I forgot what they called it in the film, but in this cooperative group of planets, they're peaceful. And you got these outsiders that want to mess up that peace. They want to take over. And so these starfighters and these navigators, they are banding together to push back against these aggressors. After a lot of back and forth, like even so far as Greg actually taking Alex home, and then Alex realizing that he has to fulfill his destiny as a starfighter, and they end up back at the frontier. The frontier is where the enemy is, and facing off against some enemy pilots. Alex actually devised a plan where they could engage in a surprise attack against the enemy, and at the same time sever communications so that the master ship or the main ship of the enemy is disrupted and can't communicate with all of the little fighter ships. And Alex is doing well on his own. And then the gun starter he has is like a special prototype. It has a special weapon to it. So Greg encourages, like after they presumably get rid of most of the other fighters, there are only a few fighters left. So they use a special weapon. It's called the Death Blossom. That's a special function of the gun start that they have, where once it's activated, it just shoots off lasers like crazy and takes out basically all the enemy in a 360 or in a spherical area. And then once they've taken out the battleships, once they've taken out the fighters, they attack the battleship and disable the battleship so that it crashes and so on and so forth. And the day is saved. So I really appreciated all of the story elements that were added to this film. It was just complex enough that made it interesting, but not so complex that it was confusing. Hopefully, as I spoke to you about this movie, that I didn't confuse you with the way I was kind of going back and forth. And I left out a lot of things that, a lot of the elements of this movie, but I just wanted to convey how much I enjoyed this film. At the end of the film, Alex goes back to Earth. He reveals the spaceship and the aliens to all of his neighbors. And so his neighbors get to meet aliens for the first time. And Maggie finally decides to go with Alex on his grand adventure, which is a big ask. It is a big ask to ask your girlfriend to leave the planet Earth to go and build a life. Who knows where? She doesn't know. He's being asked to go back into, to the group, to the planets to the other planets. He's being asked to go back so that he can train the next generation of starfighters, because all the other starfighters got like wiped out. So they want him to train a new batch of starfighters, because this movie was set up to have sequels. One of the bad guys had gotten away. The traitor had gotten away. And so there's a potential for him to come back, and then there would be a sequel, but a sequel was never made. There have been talks about a sequel for a very long time, but it never came into fruition. But that's what it's set up as. And the reason, like I said, it was a flop. So it's not something where they would consider making a sequel. But yeah, hopefully I didn't juke you too much, but I really enjoyed The Last Starfighter. And now that we have talked about our favorite parts, let's get into the trivia. So we have the trivia top 10. I got all of this from IMDb. It's robust in trivia. According to screenwriter Jonathan R. Bettuel, the idea for this movie came about because he wandered into a video arcade and saw a young boy playing a video game. At the time, he was reading the book about King Arthur, The Once and Future King by T.H. White. He wondered what would happen if a video game were a metaphorical sword in the stone, and a boy racked up an incredible score which would cause a ripple effect across the universe. During the movie, when Centauri gets into trouble for using the game to recruit starfighters, it's referred to as the Excalibur test. Excalibur was, of course, King Arthur's sword. So that's an interesting inspiration. So I liked the metaphor aspect. It didn't connect with me that the video game was supposed to be a stand-in for Excalibur. You remove Excalibur from the stone, or you beat the high score on a video game and you unleash your destiny, or you unleash power, or it puts you onto a new path of greatness. So that's a very interesting thing that he did. The star car that Centauri drives is based on a DeLorean, the car that 1 year later turned into an iconic car after Back to the Future. That was in 1985, including its gull-wing doors and its stainless steel construction. A great number of the scenes with the beta unit were shot after the main filming was complete, because the test audience liked the comic release of the beta unit scenes, and director Nick Castle decided they added more originality to the boy goes into outer space story. This is why in many of the beta unit scenes, Lance Guest is wearing a wig. He had to cut his hair by the time those new scenes were shot. Two of the scenes that were added to the final cut were the scene where the beta takes off his head to fix his ear, and the disastrous makeout moment at Silver Lake with Maggie. So I did not realize that in those scenes the actor was wearing a wig. Lance Guest did not look like he was wearing a wig, or I'm really bad at noticing when people are wearing wigs. The CGI, which was groundbreaking at the time, were made on a Cray X-MP computer, which at the time cost $10 to $15 million, which adjusted for inflation in 2025 comes out to about $32 to $48 million, using 1983 as the start year. Even in 2026, a fully functional one from that era sells for between $10,000 to $50,000. Will Wheaton's speaking scenes were deleted, but he is visible in two scenes. Early in the movie, he runs around the trailer park in a red football jersey. In the final scene, he is obscured wearing a blue jacket. possibly over the red jersey, standing behind Louis Rogan. So I didn't go back to rewatch the film to find it, but I didn't realize that Will Wheaton was actually in this movie. When Alex returns home from space at the end of the film to the Starbright trailer park, Nick Castle, the director, compares this to a child coming from college, including introducing his family and friends to a foreign buddy, in this case, Grig, an alien that kind of looks like a giant lizard. Quote from Castle, "This whole section is so corny but fun, introducing your alien friend to your folks." End quote. Atari produced games for its 5200 Super System and 400 and 800 series home computers as a tie-in with this movie. But they never went past the prototype phase, though copies do survive. The game was nothing like the arcade machine Alex Rogan played in the movie. The technology did not exist at the time to produce real-time 3D polygonal graphics on a home machine. Rumor has it that Atari produced one prototype Last Starfighter arcade machine, but it has since been lost. An early Atari 2600 program was revamped into the game released as Solaris. So, no, they didn't have a game for this movie, The Last Starfighter. They were working on it, and they never released it. But I guess they took some remnants of what they were working on and they repackaged it as a 2600 program and they called it Solaris. The iconic Starfighter video game that Alex plays, which was planned as a real one but never made, was designed to be different than the standard video games with 3D graphics and to look more like a real flight simulator. So, eventually they did manage to make real flight simulator games. They just weren't able to do it with The Last Starfighter. Initially, Alex Rogan was to be from the suburbs, but Nick Castle changed the location to a trailer park for several reasons. The biggest reason was that pretty much every film from that era that involved Steven Spielberg, including E.T. the Extraterrestrial from 1982, Close Encounters of the Third Kind from 1977, and Poltergeist from 1982, used the suburbs as a setting. Secondly, Castle wanted a more isolated location for Alex to have an extended family that allowed the audience to identify with him and root for him. So yeah, I thought it was really strange for it to be in a trailer park. It is very unusual. And this piece of trivia is correct because a lot of these films do start off in the suburbs. Nick Castle calls the casting of Robert Preston in his final film role as Centauri as one of the greatest castings of the 80s. He later refers to him as the music man in space and the archetypical flim-flam man. Castle notes that he always considered this story to be like a classic musical without music, which is part of the reason he chose someone so theatrical to play Centauri. And that is correct. Robert Preston does have this flair where it feels like even though you're watching a movie, it feels like you're watching a stage play. That is his affectation when you watch it. And the other actor I really enjoyed was Grig. The actor that played Grig was Dan O'Hurley. And it's like, he has a bunch of mannerisms in this movie that was just very entertaining. Also, I have to make a correction. The correction is this. When I talked about Dan O'Hurley's film credits, I wrote the role that he played as the old man, but I didn't write the movie that he was in. There isn't a movie called The Old Man. There is a movie that he was in called RoboCop, and in RoboCop he played the old man. The old man being the CEO of Omni Consumer Products. So yeah, Dan O'Hurley played that character, which is very different from Grig, the alien that kind of looks like a lizard. So that's it for the trivia. Now let's see what the critics thought. The critics have it at 76%. The audience score is 70% on Rotten Tomatoes. And on IMDb reviews, it's at 6.7 out of 10. Rita Kempley from the Washington Post wrote, "This ingenuous film is probably the summer's best escape, a cosmic getaway with a clever cast and down-to-earth director who uses computer graphics the way Tron should have. It's user-friendly with people taking precedence over its bifurcated effects." So I think she appreciates that this movie is centered on the characters in the movie and not on the technology that makes the space battles possible. And I definitely appreciate that. John Bemrose from Maclean's Magazine wrote, "Watching Starfighter with its two-dimensional characters and its flood of enemy spaceships is like peering into a video game. Initially exciting, but ultimately static." So obviously I disagree wholeheartedly with John. I don't see the characters as being two-dimensional. There is some character growth with Alex, and I really appreciate that character growth. The thing that I really like the most is how he was so resistant to fighting in this war, because he wasn't asked to fight in this war, and all the convincing that the other characters did, or the aliens did, to convince Alex to stay and help them defend their planetary group against this evil empire. And the other thing is that Earth was threatened too. So there's that. But I liked the characters in this. They made the movie watchable. And so I don't understand the criticism. Marilyn Oricio from Pittsburgh Post-Gazette wrote, "Though the movie has its flaws, it never pretends to be more than a flight of intergalactic fancy. A wonderfully engaging cast, funny dialogue, and infectious good spirits make even the more trite scenes thoroughly engaging." And yes, I concur with Marilyn on this. And then there's Bob Lundegaard from Minneapolis Star Tribune, and he wrote, "The special effects are effective, if nothing special. And Guest is a very credible, reluctant hero, but The Last Starfighter lacks the sense of tension, of palatable danger that all tales of adventure need if they're going to grip our attention." And you know what? I'm going to let Bob have that. I understand where he's coming from. I think this film could have used a little more tension. It needed something a little more extra to give it that oomph, and maybe that's why it wasn't as successful as it could have been. Finally, The Last Starfighter is, as of this recording, available on Amazon Prime. Next time, we'll check out a film that may have meant to be a franchise, but turned out to be a one and done. It's loaded with adventure and charm, like an Indiana Jones film, and starred the actor who was originally chosen to play the famous archaeologist, Tom Selleck. Join me next time as I try to figure out why Quigley Down Under wasn't a bigger film than it was. You can follow me on Blue Sky, Threads, TikTok, Instagram, and sometimes Twitter at Backlook Cinema. Please contact us with any questions, comments, or suggestions at friends@backlookcinema.com. Please rate and review on your favorite podcast app, and if you're listening on YouTube, please like or subscribe or leave a comment below. I'd love to hear from you. One last time, if you like the show, then please help us grow by spreading the word about Backlook Cinema, the podcast. Believe me, it matters. I've been Zoe Richardson. Be safe. Share a movie from yesteryear with your family. Hug your loved ones. And if you're going to be anything, be outstanding.